Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 3 of Tailgate Trash Talk. Alongside me, Mr. Gary Freeze, I'm Big Stove, and welcome and thanks for tuning in. How's it going, big guy?
It's going, man. I got to take a moment to pause here, dude.
Okay. All right.
The fire that you're bringing with these fucking intro videos, bro. That shit got me so amped. That's fucking awesome, man.
I appreciate it.
I have to take a moment to appreciate that because, dude, you're doing this stuff in such a selfless manner too. Like it's not like that's your full-time job. You're doing this stuff in the whatever little bit of free time that we adults with full-time jobs and children and families have. So I have to take a moment to really appreciate it, dude. That shit is fucking fire for one.
Appreciate
and two, it. I know the time it takes, and that's why I don't want to do it. Because one, I'm not very creative, and two, it takes a shitload of time and effort. So I really appreciate it, bro.
No, thank you. Happy to do it. I'm sure if my wife is listening right now, she would appreciate your comments as well, because it has taken a little bit of time away from the family. So appreciate her for understanding, and thank you.
Sure, man. Little microwave. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Mr. Gary Free Senior Trash Talk, bringing it. I appreciate it, sir. Thanks for tuning in again. You are 3 for 3. We love it, and we appreciate it.
Batting 1,000. Hey, I got to show you too the Tailgate beer for this week. So we've had Miller and and
some Bush Latte.
Bush Lattes. This week we're hitting the old Blue Ribbon, baby. Blue Ribbon, baby.
Solid choice.
Award winner in 1893.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. Kudos to you. Touche for bringing the heat on the beer end.
I'm going to try to switch it up every week as much as possible. If there's suggestions out there too, let us know. And as long as I can get it, I'll choke down whatever beer it takes.
Nice. Oh, well, welcome to another week.
Terrible either.
No, they're not. They're really not. So, welcome to another week of Tailgate Trash Talk. And, just to recap on last week, man, there were some good games.
Yeah.
We picked some winners. I definitely picked some losers. I'll come right out.
Hey, listen, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, though.
True. But man, some of those games, and we were both on board with a couple of those picks, and
Maryland laid a fucking egg.
Maryland just laid an egg on us. I mean, that just screwed up my parlay for the whole weekend. So, I mean, sorry for anyone that was listening to us last week and went ahead and picked Maryland. Again, we are not advocates. We are not held liable for any losses or anything else like that. So
I'm not paying your rent if you gambled it away.
No, definitely not. But man, that
we didn't get out the gate very well with Maryland.
we did not. And
we're still in the paddock.
Man, I think last week kind of put us in the hole overall on some picks.
I think so.
So
all that
just
equity we built up in the first couple of shows.
yeah.
We let slip away last week. We'll
Exactly.
get back on track though.
We will. So just to recap here a little bit, the Maryland Iowa game, that was one of our games that we had highlighted. And Iowa going into it was only a 3.5 point favorite. And so a lot of people were taking Maryland, taking the points on that one. I believe both you and I, we were both on board here, and we were picking Maryland outright. And the stat in that game for Tua Jr., 6 INTs, man. And going into that game, that was kind of a game that was going to kind of propel him up because he was on some people's radar for a potential Heisman candidate. But that game right there that took all hope away, I believe.
Yeah, there's no recovering from that. It was penalties early too, and then the turnovers started piling up, and then they got so far behind, and he just was trying to force stuff, and the Avalanche was coming down the hill. I was a talented team. Going into College Park, I thought it was going to be a different atmosphere. The fans were showing out early, but Maryland just, early on they got behind the 8 ball and never had a chance to recover. When you're Maryland against number 4 Iowa or number 5 Iowa, like you can't do that sort of stuff early.
Yeah, exactly. And Iowa made him pay. Iowa looked like the number at the time, the number 4 team in the country. So good for them for going into a hostile environment on a Friday night, Friday under the lights, and getting the job done. And they got a tough opponent this week too. So, and we'll touch base on that later on. Going to our next game that we had, Arkansas, Georgia. This is one you picked Georgia. This is one where I was going pig suey on everyone here, and I was picking a major upset. And Georgia put me in my place for sure. They just manhandled Arkansas, and they are showing the country what kind of team they are. And their defense, you sent over that stat to me after that game. Oh my God.
They played 2 top 10 teams this year and given up 3 points.
Yeah.
And we've talked about how Clemson is kind of falling off, but still they were number, I think, like 3 at the time.
2 or 3 at the time, yeah. So
Georgia just stifled them. And they did it again to Arkansas this weekend. That defense is just, I keep saying it, and until they prove me wrong, they remind me of the fucking 2000 Ravens, man. Not that they're 11 NFL guys across the board that would go be able to shut down that 2000s Patriots team, but like they just have so much speed, and they're bigger than other people, and they're all over. They're flying to the ball. They're like rabid dogs out there, man.
Exactly. They're on another level. It's Alabama, Georgia, and then everyone else.
The field.
Yeah. So,
or as Dabo would call them, the little guys. We're just little old everybody else.
So Arkansas laid an egg for me there. So right off the bat, I'm going 0 for 2 for the weekend. The Michigan Wisconsin game, we barely touched base on that one, but we were both in agreement on there. We were taking Michigan on that one. So nothing too surprising there.
Highlighted it as a potential, pitfall, but Michigan, they look like they're on a different mission than they have been in previous years.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm starting to buy in a little bit. I'm preparing myself for the inevitable letdown. It feels inevitable, but I'm starting to buy a little bit.
Exactly. Then moving on to the game that we both picked here, and this was a game where both you and I said last week when we were doing our Heisman stock report that this was a game for Desmond Ridder. to propel himself into that, because he is, he's outside of the Power Five there. So he's in that, the group of five that doesn't get much respect throughout the country. And Coach Fickle over there, he's doing a heck of a job. He's been doing a heck of a job. They played Georgia tough last year in the bowl game, and they've built off that, and it's showing this season. And Desmond Ritter put on a highlight reel for us against Notre Dame and took care of business and really propelled himself into top two. And who knows where he is this week in our Heisman stock report. But we'll get to that later on. But man, he had a heck of a game, and he's one of those guys that, for you, he brought out a whole new segment for us this week.
Yes, he fucking did. Yes, he did. Yeah, that game was, with the exception of one play where he fumbled, right? That was the one play that, at the moment I thought, man, this is going to let Notre Dame get back in it. We're going to have a game on our hands, and I hate to see something like that swing it. But, Notre Dame went down, they scored, and then Cincinnati recovered when it came to crunch time. And we talked about it in the chat, right? And I called it a Heisman drive, right?
Yep.
That was, to me, when they were at 17-10, with
the tide was kind of turning there.
The momentum was definitely shifting. And, I'm looking at it, it's, there's an opportunity for Notre Dame to really seize this game. They end up, getting the ball, and Ritter takes him down the field. In that one throw, he drove a fucking missile right down the fucking pipe. And, that really, to me, that's what put the game away and propelled him really to, where I don't want to spoil anything, but, propelled him to, one, the new segment, and two, where, I have him, and I think we both have him for Heisman running right now.
Yeah, exactly. And, you hit the nail on the head. I do recall the text there that this is a Heisman drive, and I was totally in agreement with you. And he didn't disappoint.
Not at all.
Not at all. So the pressure was not was definitely not too big for him on that big of a stage in Notre Dame too.
Yeah, that's the big thing, right?
Yeah.
They were in South Bend.
Yeah. Andy Yeagley says no, absolutely no Florida talk. Well, Mr. Yeagley, it's
it's happening.
It's gonna happen. That was one of those games last week where we didn't touch base too much on them because we thought Florida was going to go to Kentucky there and get the job done.
We did caveat that they play them tough, but
we did.
We both expected Florida to go in and take care of business, and they haven't shaken off the Alabama hangover.
No. And that, we were touching base on that too. During that game that you mentioned, that they haven't, ever since they played Alabama, they have not played to that potential in the following games.
It's proof positive that there are no moral victories in football.
Yeah. So moving on, the next game that we had highlighted, we touched base a little bit on Clemson, Boston College. We both picked Clemson to win that game, but holy cow, Boston College, you should have won it twice.
Yeah.
You should have won it twice in that fourth quarter within the last 4 minutes, and you gave it away.
Yeah, that fumble on the snap too was just so deflating. I mean, obviously there wasn't enough time left after that, but man, how do you lose on that?
Yeah,
on a fumbled snap.
Exactly. Brenda Fries, hey Gary, watching all the way from Hawaii.
Yeah, we got quite a few time zones away here.
Yeah. So is it what is it? 9 a.m.
hours, so it'd be 3:15-ish p.m.
Okay.
I believe it's either 5 or 6 hours behind.
Should ask Fresno State if they even remember.
They probably want to ignore everything about Hawaii right now.
Yeah. Appreciate you joining us there, Brenda. But so Boston College, you gave that one away. That was a clear victory for you guys, and you just fumbled it, literally fumbled it out of your hands. moving on, Auburn at LSU. This was one that we touched base, and shockingly, I had LSU. I can't remember who you had. Did you have?
I had LSU as well.
You had LSU as well. So, yeah, here's another one that just,
they let it get away too. Like they were in control of this game until about 2/3 of the way through the third quarter, and Auburn just steamrolled the rest of the way and ended up closing out.
Yeah. So, man, can't believe that one. Bo Nix came back. Bo Nix there. So,
yep.
Arizona State, UCLA.
Fighting Herms.
Herms, babe. Herms, the road dog himself.
You literally to win the game.
That's right. This is one where you took UCLA. You even told Little John.
I did. I lost him some money.
Yeah, you did. So I haven't seen him comment tonight. So he's probably a little pissed off at you.
He's probably nursing his wounds.
Yeah, but Sun Devils got the job done there.
I didn't see a fucking 20-point blowout coming. Especially, holy cow!
No, but definitely not.
Chip Kelly's got them going the right direction, but it's clear they're not there yet.
Yeah. Yep. Fresno State, Hawaii. This one hurt as well, especially for my boy Jake Hayner, who I have had in my Heisman stock report since day one. You go over to Hawaii, and I was watching that game. It just he did not look himself. I don't know if it was jet lag or what, but he just did not look himself, and he was missing high a lot and missing wide. I want to say he had 3 or 4 INTs during that game, and he only had 2 all season long. Yeah. And you double your INT in one game. Your completion percentage went downhill as well too. Just not a very good game for one of my Heisman hopefuls since day one. And unfortunately, you and I talked about it as well on Sunday. That was one of those games where you should not lose. You can't lose, especially where you play, kind of the conference that you're in, the time slots that you're always playing. You're not getting that national media coverage, attention on yourself. And so every game you have to bring your A game if you want to stay considered, a Heisman contender and hopeful. And unfortunately for Jake on this one, they went over to Hawaii. It was a very late game, 11 o'clock at night, our time here on the East Coast. Went in and laid an egg and lost to a 2-3 Hawaii team.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And, Hawaii's not what they used to be, but I remember back when they had like Colt Brennan and, some of the quarterbacks that were just putting up astronomical numbers, and they had, June Jones was out there. They were always kind of a tough out for teams because of what you mentioned, right? The time difference. West Coast teams, the body clock's just different. The flight, it's a long ass flight, man. Not only is it 3 time zones west, but like it's fucking 5,000 miles south, man. It's like at the equator. So like it's a long flight, and that sort of stuff can be tough. And as student athletes too, it's not like you're a professional athlete where you can just leave a week early, right? Let your body clock adjust. It's a tough environment, but for me, I had Hayner on the outside. He was kind of 6, 7, 8. There were a few guys that I had.
Yeah, he was on your outside looking in.
Yeah, and I had him on my radar. But as you said, right, in that conference, on that team, you can't have one of these games, unfortunately. And for me, that puts the nail in the coffin. He, probably won't even be on my radar the rest of the season. And I hate to say that because I think he's a quality quarterback. I think he's got NFL prospects.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the Heisman goes, I think this game really spelled doom for him.
Yeah, no, I agree. Oh, moving on. Here's another one where it just did not go my way this week. In Ole Miss, Alabama, I was picking the Ole Miss Rebels to upset number 1 Alabama and go into undefeated, I believe, Arkansas this week. I think they have Arkansas this week.
Yep.
To where you would have Ole Miss undefeated and Arkansas undefeated this week. And
coming off of wins against number 1 and number 2 also. That would have been a fucking matchup, man.
Yeah. So unfortunately, Lane, I even said last week that, Lane was going to get the job done. The student was going to beat the teacher, and we were going to see something from Lane that went against the narrative, as far as play selection goes. And the only thing that I saw from and I called it on the first drive,
Yeah.
that they were going to do some razzle dazzle play and get a touchdown and everything. But the only thing that I saw from Lane during this whole game was the fourth down attempts. I think he was over for the day.
I think they got one.
One.
I think they got one. I think they got one on the first drive and then missed on the second one on the first drive, and then didn't get another one the rest of the day. And they went like 5 or 6 times.
Oh my! And the one that
he was in desperation mode when he walked out of the locker room.
Yes.
Like, what are you doing, bud?
And the one that got me the most was the one where you did it from like your own 30-yard line on fourth. It was like 4th and long too, and you're going
like
for
4 or 5, right? Like 4th or 4th and 5.
Man, you said it in our text messaging that he was coaching scared.
Yeah.
They were playing scared the whole game. And yeah, it's, and everyone talked about leading up to the game how everyone was looking for something from Lane, has he matured, blah, 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 this and that. And a lot of people went to defend him all week. And then you get to the game and the pregame interview where he's
popcorn ready.
Get your popcorn ready.
He never turned the microwave on, so there was no popcorn at all.
But
popcorn is still in the bag.
It's still kernels, buddy. It's still kernels. But it's just one of those things where you thought Lane had turned that corner, and then you pull that stunt right before the game, and then have to issue an apology afterwards.
It's tough, man, because I like we talked about with Ritter last week. Like, I like swag, man, but I actually had a conversation with a buddy I work with this week. The difference between swag and ego, right? Swag is great. You're confident. It's infectious. You're bringing your teammates along with you. You have an air about you. Ego is that asshole mentality, right? You're just saying shit just to say shit, just to stir the pot, right? And I get it. Game's coming. They're asking him questions, and he probably in his head thought it was a good fucking idea because he had this game plan set and he was going to show the world that he can outsmart the fucking mad scientist. But turns out, Nick's still Nick, man. Like, Bama's still Bama. And he said what he said. And if they'd have won the game, everybody been like, holy fuck, yeah, popcorn for everybody.
Yeah.
But they lost, and he issued an apology, and it's probably, him just kind of doing his diligence. But for me, I don't know that it's immaturity anymore, right? I think he had some immaturity problems before, especially at Tennessee, a little bit at USC. But I think he's learned his lesson a bit. When he was at FAU, I think that was humbling for him. You're at a no-name school. He brought some notoriety there, and then now he's at Ole Miss. And I just think he got in his own head and got too amped up for the game as a coach, and it sounded really good up here. I guarantee you that. It sounded really good up here because I've said shit like that before. Like, man, this sounds awesome in my head, and then I say it, and fucking 30 seconds later, I'm like, fuck, man, what the fuck did I just say, right? So, like, I get it. You can get yourself caught up in that moment, and I think that's what it was. And the biggest problem for me is, like, he left the locker room scared. To me, he was desperate when he left the locker room. So, just a tough one. The 42-21 score doesn't indicate how much of a difference there was in that game, right? That score is way closer than the game was. And it's a 3-tutty game.
Mm-hmm.
But that game was never really
close. No, definitely not. Definitely not. Oh, well, we live to fight another day. Oregon, Stanford, we briefly touched base on that one. And did not see this one coming. Wow. Stanford 31-24 in overtime.
Man, oh man, this turned into the game of the fucking weekend. They score on an untimed down to go to overtime, and then they score a tutty in overtime, and they shut Oregon down.
Shut them down.
Man, what a fucking game by Stanford.
Yeah.
I know there's some people complaining. It was a tight call.
It was.
There's contact there. Usually, in those moments late in games, I tend to want the refs to let them play, but I'll tell you what it did for me as I'm not an Oregon fan.
Mm-hmm.
It made a hell of a game for me to watch.
Sure. And we talked about it all day on Saturday. This is why we love college football. There's so many good games, so many upsets. We talked about it last week. What was it? 25 ranked opponents had already lost. And like 15, 14 of those had lost to unranked teams. Yeah. And then you have nine more teams this week that were ranked lose. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy.
We have, I think 3 or 4 of them were to unranked this weekend.
Yeah. And that's why we love college football. That's why we're here talking about college football. So moving on, we had Oklahoma, Kansas State. This is one where, we actually kind of thought Kansas State would get this one, and they almost did. And you and I were watching this game together and communicating back and forth on this one. And the refs in this one did Kansas State a disservice.
Yeah.
That was some brutal refereeing there by the Zebras in that game.
Ugly.
Yeah. I mean, I think you had a targeting call. You had
they had a targeting call on somebody who had his head up and just hit the guy too hard.
Yeah.
And what made it worse is when you watch this weekend, I'm going to go to a different game, but I'm going to use it as the example. Targeting to me in college football has gotten way too out of control. Gary Patterson calls a timeout on a punt because they only have 9 guys on the field. They review the fucking play during the timeout. They didn't review it before his timeout. They didn't review it before the punt. They didn't buzz down and say, we got to look. He took a timeout. During the timeout, they review the play and call targeting. The dude hit him with his fucking shoulder. And I don't remember who said it, but it was the perfect line, and I stole it when I said it to you. I wish I could cite him here on the show, and I apologize for whoever I'm stealing this from. Targeting has gone beyond safety of the game, and it is detrimental to the game now.
Mm-hmm.
It is absolutely taking away from the game. They're not calling it properly. They're not reviewing it properly. They're not officiating it properly. It's just gotten to the point that you're getting these flags. You're getting people kicked out of games. Hey, little buddy. Getting people kicked out of games for no reason, way too frequently. There are plays that need to be called, but there are just way too many that are called that shouldn't be.
Yeah. You had that play. You had a completion, I believe, on it was 3rd or 4th down. The dude caught it. He went to the ground. Ball did not move. They called it an incomplete pass. And then you have...
Yeah, that was the one where he had the one hand under it, right?
Yes.
And he hit the ground. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Then you have the onside kick.
Oh, my God.
The onside kick.
Oh, my God.
Kansas State onsides it, catches Oklahoma off guard. They get the ball. They review it.
And don't call it.
And don't call anything.
And then they allow Oklahoma to challenge?
They were, and I believe it was Mike Pereira.
I think it was either Pereira or Sterator, but the booth official that helps them in the game understand what the refs and the rules and all that is like. Why are they letting him challenge it? If he's saying it, they shouldn't be fucking challenging.
Exactly. You cannot challenge a play that has already been reviewed.
That's not open for interpretation. Right?
Oh, man.
That's binary. That's yes or no, and the answer's no. What I don't like about that too, on top of letting them challenge it, is that play that they called there is not the spirit of the rule.
Mm-hmm.
The spirit of the rule is a guy that gets it off the tee, squibs it 2 yards, and then kicks it. That's the spirit of the rule. A guy that kicks the ball. I don't know how. I mean, if you watched every onside kick under that sort of level of scrutiny, how many times do you think the ball touches somebody's foot twice?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I would guess it's more frequently than we would think, right? Like, it's just, that's not the spirit of the rule. And I get it. The rule says what it says, but there has to be some level of, this is unintentional. This is not malicious. This is happenstance. I hate it. I get the rule says what it says, but that dude recovered that kick.
Yeah.
I wonder what little man's thoughts are on the officials. Are they terrible?
Terrible? Yes or no? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. They're terrible.
Terrible. You know, and we'll get off the soapbox here for Kansas State, Oklahoma. But this is 3 weeks in a row that Oklahoma has squeaked by. Nebraska, West Virginia, Kansas State.
Yep.
They could have easily have lost 3 straight games.
Yep.
But it is what it is. They're undefeated. They're playing Texas this week. So we'll move on.
I will say this, Cincinnati moving above them in the polls tells me that the voters are seeing the same things that we're seeing.
Yeah.
They're not buying what Oklahoma's selling right now.
Yep. And now, granted, these polls don't mean anything until a couple more weeks when they come out with the playoff.
CFP.
The CFP.
That's the one that matters.
So
but right now, it tells me that the voters are seeing what we're seeing.
Yep.
And they're not buying the shit that Oklahoma's selling.
Exactly. All right, moving on. The Florida-Kentucky game. We just briefly touched base on it last week. That's one where, we both picked Florida, but we did say they better watch out for Kentucky because Kentucky always plays them good, and Florida went into Kentucky and got beat, and is what it is. And like you said, they have not played well. They have not played like the team that they should be or could be since that Alabama game.
Yeah, for sure. It's a hangover, and it's understandable. That was kind of their Super Bowl. And when you lose that and you see Georgia doing what they're doing, I like it, Dustin. I'm with you on Hook'em this weekend.
Yeah,
I think Bijan Robinson is about to fucking run roughshod through that defense.
Yep.
But yeah, Kentucky, Mark Stoops, these are the games that you think like, oh, is Mark Stoops creating a little bit of a program there in Kentucky? And then they'll go and lose like 3 games. They'll lose to Vanderbilt and fucking
to teams that you should not. Yeah, exactly.
So, I hope, in the past they've had some opportunities with some guys that you thought might be able to propel the program, and then they go and lay an egg. I hope for Kentucky's sake, kind of soft spot, I guess, if I'm really, really putting my heart out there. I hope that they can seize that momentum because they're number 16 in the polls now.
Yeah.
So they're getting some respect. They're 5-0. Big win over number 10, top 10 team. Build on that, right? Yep. Don't go out this weekend. Don't go out this weekend and let LSU beat you in your own house.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, the only other one that we talked about in depth was the Baylor Oklahoma State game. I think we might have been divided on this.
We were split. I had Baylor. Yeah, you had Oklahoma State.
Yep.
I was wrong. You were right.
Hey, I finally got one, bud. Finally got one. So that's it for this week or for last week's games. So before we move on to this week's games and highlight a few of the games for this week, a little bit of NCAA news that was voted on yesterday was basically the transfer portal and the ability to sign extra players. And in the past, you can only have 25 scholarship signees per year and everything. Now I believe it's just a 1-year trial basis for this next year. And it's basically you can have your 25, but you get an additional 7 for this next year. And that can be basically use those 7 for your transfer portals signees, just in case a program has a mass exodus or anything like that. Kids wanting to go in the transfer portal, blah blah blah. So we've kind of touched base on it. I am not a big fan of the whole transfer portal thing right now. I understand, the NIL, all that with everything that entails, but the transfer portal, kids are leaving right now, like mid-season, and just it's, and then they can play right away. It's to me, it's one of those things where stick it out, or if they can't stick it out, and there's everyone's story is different. Okay. I get that, but it's one of those things for me. If you commit to something, stick it out. If there's some underlying circumstances, if the coach leaves or, stuff like that, if, you're just not getting along with your teammates, your coaches, okay, try and stick it out. If you can't, then enter the transfer portal after your season's done. But you have that time to decide. But then I don't think you should be eligible right away just because, hey, I'm not getting any playing time right here. They recruited me. I'm not getting any playing time. 3 games in the season, I'm entering the transfer portal. Now, granted, you can't play if you go to another college mid-season. You can play the next fall, but I still think that you should have to sit out another full year in order to play again. It's just gotten to be too much for me.
Yeah, I think on the surface, right, I like the idea of the transfer portal, and I like that it was an adjustment by the NCAA to some extenuating circumstances, right? There were factors out of their control that introduced the idea that, hey, we're going to open the transfer portal. You can transfer without losing eligibility, and then they just kept it going, right? Which on the surface, right, I like I said, I like the transfer portal idea because it gives kids an opportunity if they're in a bad situation, like you said, right? It's just not working. They can transfer somewhere and they can play. What it introduces inevitably, though, is De'Aaron King, right? Played 3 games, I think, with Houston, and then sat out the rest of the season and said, I'm going to the transfer portal, right? Yep. He played just not enough games to lose that year of eligibility.
To lose that eligibility, exactly.
So he enters the transfer portal, and now he's down at Miami. And, like, that's the situation that, to me, is that's the inevitable dark cloud or dark, lining to it. And I like this as a response to that. I think this gives teams an opportunity to, sign guys to make up for some of those losses. And I think this is going to stay. I don't know that it's going to be a full 7 forever. Maybe it's 3 to 5 or something like that, depending on how the transfer portal. I think eventually we're going to get to a place where it's going to even out a bit, and we're not going to see the last year there was like 1,000 kids in the transfer portal.
There was like, there was over 1,000. Yeah,
like some hundreds of dudes are in the transfer portal at any given time, and that's too much. I think we're going to get to a little bit of a stable point, and I like this as a response, and I think it's going to help stabilize some of that. Teams are going to be able to kind of make up for some of those losses and get guys in that want to play. Overall, the whole transfer portal thing is a bit confounding because of what it eventually or inevitably introduces, though. Those guys that want to abuse the system, it's not like a medical red shirt, right? Where I got nicked up and we made the decision because we're only halfway through the season that if I don't play the rest of the season, I can save that year of eligibility, so I'll just rehab and get strong for next year. These are guys that are willingly sitting out, entering the transfer portal, and I think that can get a little ugly, as we've seen in some scenarios. But overall, I think it's a good response by the NCAA to open up some doors. I think the NIL thing complicates it a little more too, because then it just becomes free agency essentially. So
yeah,
it could get a little ugly here in the next couple of years, but I think eventually we're going to get to a point where the transfer portal is just part of the normal and it stabilizes. We may see a couple hundred kids a year. You got to remember too, in college football, there's 155 or 56 like Division 1A schools with 70 to 90 athletes on the team at any given time. So you're talking 10,000 students that of those, a couple hundred go in the transfer portal. I think that's a good number. 1,000 though, 10% of your fucking population is in the transfer portal. That's too much.
Yeah. Yep. I totally agree. Totally agree. All right. Well, before we get to our next segment where we preview some games for this week, we'll take 1 minute break here. Give a shout out to our one of our sponsors, PocketPairClub.com. Club number 26881, PocketPairClub.com for all your gambling needs. Club number 26881. We'll be back here in 1 minute.
I made it back in time this time.
We're back. We're back. All right. So moving on from last week and previewing some games for this week, we got another good slate of football games going on for this week. So can't wait for it. And it starts tomorrow and it continues Friday and Saturday. So 3 straight days of college football. And I love it. And it starts with one of our favorite teams that we've been talking about, Coastal Carolina Chanticleers.
The Shanties.
The Shanties.
I love Thursday college football.
I do too.
I know the MAC a lot of times will pick like a Tuesday to play a game and whatnot, but Thursday college football is great, especially when we get the Shanties. They're going into Arkansas State. They should roll pretty good, so it should be an entertaining game. But yeah, give me some Thursday football. I can line up side to side with the NFL game Thursday night.
That's right, baby. That's right. Going across there Friday night. Not much of a game here, but it's one that I just want to touch base on real quick. Like, it's one of those games that Cincinnati cannot let off the gas here. They got to keep that foot on the gas pedal, keep going. Can't have any letdowns or anything else like that. You know, just because you just went into South Bend and beat Notre Dame does not mean you can rest on Temple.
This is a danger game, man.
It is. It is
coming off a huge win, the biggest win in program history, really.
Yeah.
Maybe not in history, but like at least in recent history.
Yep.
Who knows what Cincinnati did back in the 40s, but this is a game. You can't have a letdown. You can't get tripped up by Temple. You should roll in this. You should win by multiple scores. Keep them style points rolling. Keep the voters paying attention to you because they don't have a lot of big games down the stretch now that they've beaten Notre Dame. The biggest thing for them is keep winning, but also keep rooting for Notre Dame to keep winning.
Yeah, exactly. Second game of Friday night, my boy Herm down there got a
rank now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Buddy.
I got Arizona State on that one over Stanford.
Yes, sir.
Then Saturday, Maryland, Ohio State. Pretty much, we saw what the Terps did last week to Iowa. I'm going to go with Iowa State on this one. And then it gets to one of the games that we want to talk about, Oklahoma, Texas. And we just talked about Oklahoma and the scares that they've had the past 3 weeks with their close games against Nebraska, West Virginia, and then last weekend against Kansas State. And I think you and I are both in agreement here and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we're going to take Texas over Oklahoma on this one. You got him, and I hate to do it just because Raul's a big Texas fan. I like giving him shit every
giving
week,
him a hard time.
but you and I have both been saying all season basically, Oklahoma does not look like Oklahoma like they have been. The pages have flipped here. Their offense has sputtered, but their defense has what's been keeping them in the games. And with Texas and that run game now, hey, watch out. Watch out, Sooners. This is going to be one where I'm going to say hook 'em horns all weekend long.
Listen, I think this one is I think this a little microwave, 3 days straight.
3 straight days.
Cigars in the backyard, game on the big screen.
Yep.
I've got the fighting Sarks in this one. I think this game, to kind of circle it back to Cincinnati, this game is the one I think that could pave the most clear path for Cincinnati to be the first Group of 5 team.
Group of 5, yeah.
If Texas beats Oklahoma, no matter what Texas does the rest of the way, I think that right there is going to put Cincinnati in a place where we're going to get probably 2 teams out of the SEC. It's likely going to be Georgia and Alabama, pending some sort of disaster. I think we're going to get 1 team out of the Big Ten between Penn State, Iowa, Ohio State, and Michigan. One of those 4 is going to get in. And I think that leaves 1 spot open. And if Texas knocks off Oklahoma here, I think the rest of the Big 12, they're going to beat up on each other the rest of the way. And I think that's where we're going to see Cincinnati. After this week, they should be ranked number 4, right? Mm-hmm. Because Penn State and Iowa are playing. That should eliminate one of them from the top 4 right now. Assuming Cincinnati takes care of business, get them in the top 4. And when the first CFP rankings come out, that's when we'll be able to gauge, depending on the result of this Texas-Oklahoma game, where that committee sees Cincinnati and how big they give them credit for that win over Notre Dame.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Totally agree with you on that one. So we're in agreement so far on, I think, everything so far. So Vandy, Florida, this should be a no-brainer.
Snoozer.
Should be a snoozer here for Florida. Then we got Arkansas, Mississippi. I'm conflicted on this one. I really am, but I'm going to go with my Woo Pigs here. Again, I'm going to pick them back-to-back weeks. I think they have a bounce-back game. My only hiccup with this is Matt Corral and Ole Miss. Because we've had Matt Corral at the top of our Heisman stock report almost weekly.
Couple of weeks.
Yeah. Yep. And he didn't have a great game against Alabama, but does he turn it around against Arkansas, who is a good team this year? Sam Pittman has Arkansas going in the right direction here. But for me, I'm going to go Arkansas on this one over Ole Miss.
I'm taking Ole Miss at home, only because it's at home. If this was down, in pig country, I'm probably going to take the Razorbacks. But because it's in Ole Miss, because it's that's the only reason. I've got them at home. This might turn into a little bit of a shootout. I expected a bit of a shootout from Ole Miss and Alabama that we didn't really get, but
yeah.
I think this one it could turn into a bit of a shootout. We might see Matt Corral kind of rebound from that bad week and maybe kind of assert himself back into the Heisman conversation. So give me Ole Miss at home, tight game, a little bit of a shootout, probably in the mid 30s, maybe even low 40s.
All righty. All right. So we're split there. Michigan State, Rutgers. I'm going to go Michigan State on this one. Should not be a close game for me, but Rutgers has played a couple teams. They played Michigan close a couple weeks ago by a score, but I'm going to go Michigan State on this one.
Yeah, they hung around for a little while against Ohio State too, but give me Michigan State. Give me Kenneth Walker running all over the place.
Yep. Boise State, BYU. Should be no contest here. BYU.
Yeah, it's tough to count out Boise State, but BYU looks really good.
Yeah. Next one, Wake Forest, Syracuse. This is one where I think the Deacons need to be careful.
Careful.
And
they're in the Carrier Dome.
Yep. And we've seen Syracuse in years past kind of sneak up on people. They got Clemson. They now last week they were playing Florida State, pretty close. That almost won that game. Now, granted, Florida State is not the Florida State that we're used to, in years past. But Syracuse is one of those teams that can sneak up on people. And if you look past Syracuse and you're looking towards next week, Wake Forest, Syracuse is going to nip you in the butt and they're going to win this game. And that undefeated record is out the door. Yeah. You are basically the only shot the ACC has of getting into the CFP right now.
For sure. This is a
going
scary
Syracuse.
one for
I'm going Syracuse.
Are you?
I'm going to go Syracuse on this one.
I thought I was going to surprise you by going Syracuse.
Hey,
I'm with you. I think more so in college football than anything, going into the Carrier Dome, going into a domed facility is very different, and that place is fucking raucous. Mm-hmm. The noise just resonates in that building. Give me Syracuse feeding off that home crowd, and I also think Wake Forest is a little bit of a pretender to me. I don't buy their undefeated record necessarily. I think the ACC is really bad. Like, I'm on record as saying, like, the ACC is not a Power 5 conference. Like, they should not be a Power 5 conference. They're only a Power 5 conference because of basketball and money. So I'm absolutely a non-believer in the ACC in general, but I think Wake Forest is a bit of a pretender. Give me Syracuse in a sneaky upset this week. And the ACC's shot at the playoffs is just dead halfway through the year.
Yep. I like it. Next one, SMU and Navy. Navy pulled the upset last week against UCF. I'm going Navy with this one.
It's tough. That triple option is tough to defend. But I'm on SMU here. I hate to say it because I'm a Navy vet, but
you are.
Navy's not the team they've been in the past.
No, still.
I just
wow.
Yeah. Wow. I'm on SMU. I think that offense is going to be a little too much.
Get out of here.
Defense. I know.
I give you shit, bug. I give you shit.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Georgia, Auburn. I was really wanting to go with another upset here, but after watching Georgia last week and that defense, I'm not going against them. Georgia.
Smart money's laying the points here, man. Georgia, I think, is going to run away with this. Auburn, they've got some fight in them. Bo Nix, I like his moxie, I like his grit, but Georgia's just got too many athletes.
Yep, I agree. Whew. Gary Freeman. Yes, Navy might do it. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Right there. Sometimes I pick games and I hope I'm wrong. That's one, right?
Yeah.
If Navy wins, I'll be happy they win, but I think being as objective as possible, I'm on SMU there. But Georgia, I forget the backup quarterback's name now. It's eluding me, but JT Daniels was out last week.
Barrett.
That's right. He brings a new element to that offense too.
He does.
He can run. JT Daniels is more of like a statue pocket passer.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think Georgia's offense is a little more dynamic with Barrett in. So, I don't know that they want JT Daniels to come back, to be honest. I think they run more of a 2-quarterback offense now.
Yeah, I think, and this is one that we're both in agreement on, but I believe JT Daniels is more of a he's a better quarterback than than Barrett. So I think whenever he is healthy, I think he'll be the true starter. But I can see where you're going with the 2 QB system, possibly down the road, kind of almost what Alabama did a few years ago with Hurts and Tua.
Yeah, absolutely. I could see something like that where you get a change of pace guy. You could even split Barrett out and run some, trickeration, that sort of stuff. So
yeah,
I think that they discovered this weekend that Barrett can play in the SEC.
Yep. All right. Moving on, we got Penn State at Iowa. 3 versus 4 here. 2 Big Ten schools going at it, both undefeated. This is going to be a good one. This is one that I'm can't wait to see. I just don't like Iowa. I like I'm a James Franklin fan. I like his energy that he brings. So I'm going Penn State.
I'm with you. I'm on the Sean Clifford train, man. I'm
are.
all in on Sean Clifford. I
Yep.
like what he brings to the game. I like his ability to be a dual threat guy, and he, he's not a runner who can throw a little bit. He's a guy that really can do both. He's not the most precise thrower of the ball, but I think he's above average, and he's really athletic. So give me Penn State, given that Iowa defense some fits, and the big upset on the road. And this might be a game that takes Sean Clifford from just being on my radar to being on the national radar.
All righty. All right. Moving on to the next one, night game. Number 9 Michigan going to Nebraska. Gary, I'll let you pick on this one first.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it short and sweet, and then the floor is yours. Like I said, I'm starting to buy on Michigan. Adrian Martinez scares me a bit for that Michigan defense because of the things that he can do, and I hope that primes what we're going to hear from you. But I'm going Michigan because I think that they feel like they're on a different mission than they've been in the past. I think Harbaugh has finally gotten the locker room to rally around him. The team plays with toughness. They don't wilt in the big moments like we've seen them in the past, at least so far this season. They really asserted themselves physically against a really physical Wisconsin team. So for that reason, give me Michigan. I think this is going to be a nip-tuck game, and I say that with trepidation for your heart health, because I know that Nebraska's been in some cardiac games already this year. I think this is going to be another tight one late, though.
Yeah, so last week Nebraska turned the corner. They were clicking on all cylinders. Offensive line, special teams. Oh my God, special teams for once. Finally. I mean, if you heard the cheering that was going on when the punter had a booming kick. And this is a shout out to Pat McAfee and his show For the Brand. That was an 84-yard punt. 84, and the crowd was going crazy.
That was a Scud missile.
And it's one of those things. I watched the post-game conference with Scott Frost, and he's the look in his eyes. He wasn't smiling. It was very stern looking, and basically saying, this is what we should have been playing like all season long. If we played like this all season long, this could be a different story right now.
Yeah, we'd be telling an entirely different story.
Yeah. My holdup with this is it a one and done? Does Nebraska fall off, the wagon here? Use up all the determination, all the pomp and circumstance with last week and just everything going in from last week, all of that, just everything. Do they lose all of that and lay an egg this week? But with that being said, I do not think so. I think they have turned a corner. I think Scott Frost will have them ready. Offensive line is going to kick some ass, and we're going to have a go big red. Nebraska with the upset at home under the lights. Nice. GBR, go big red.
Ending Michigan's hopes of a playoff appearance.
Yes.
I love it. I love the passion too. I love it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. That's so good.
Oh, I hope, bud. But we will see. We shall see. Hopefully be a good game regardless. So
for sure.
Moving on, LSU, Kentucky. Man, this is going to be this is one where I believe if LSU loses this game to Kentucky, Oregon, or Coach O,
yeah,
he's already on the hot seat.
Yeah.
This is one where if he loses this game, he's going to be fired. And I hate to say that. I like the guy. I like the passion that he brings down there. I mean, he's just one of those guys that, I mean, I think you would want him to be your coach. I mean,
He's a guy that makes me want to run through walls.
Yes, just the way he talks and just the energy that
so passionate.
Brings, so passionate. I'm going LSU on this one. I'm going LSU going into Kentucky and winning this ball game.
Yeah, man. I want to pick with my heart because as I alluded to earlier, I don't know what it is about Kentucky football, but I've got like this weird soft spot for them that I always want to see them like knock off the big dog.
Well, I think it has to do with Stoops though too.
Yeah, a little bit.
With Stoops being their coach and
a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's the luxury that I have because I don't really have a college football team, right? Like I like Syracuse, but mostly for basketball.
I think you're becoming more of a Shanti.
I am a big fan of the Shanties for sure. So like that's what I say. Like I have that luxury to really dig in on some of these teams that, if otherwise I probably wouldn't be as passionate or have this soft spot for these teams. I have this real soft spot for Kentucky. So I want to pick with my heart this week, but this game feels like the game that I alluded to earlier. They beat Florida. We start to talk about the fact that they're 5-0. We start to talk about the fact that Mark Stoops has them on the right path. And then they play LSU at home. LSU is the more talented roster, but they are not playing at that level right now. This feels like that game that makes us take a step back and say, well, maybe Kentucky's always been who they are who we've always thought they were. So I'm with you on LSU. I think they go win this game. And I agree with you completely that if they lose this game, Coach O's out the door. Coach O was on the hot seat before the Burrow train. And the year before they won the national championship, the players had to petition for him to keep his job in the offseason.
Yep.
And then they went and won the national championship, which bought him some favor. But I think that favor's going to be out the door if they drop to 3-3 against Kentucky. I've got LSU. I'm with you.
Okay. Moving on. Notre Dame going into Blacksburg.
Yeah.
Virginia Tech. Night game. Sandman. Who you got?
Buddy. I'm going Notre Dame, and I'm going Notre Dame sheerly on the NFL talent that's on the defensive side of the ball. I think Notre Dame wins this game probably 20-13, something like that. I think low-scoring game. I think it's going to be a bit of a slugfest. Virginia Tech always plays tough. They play gritty defense as well, good on special teams. So I think we're going to see a slugfest defensively from both teams. I don't think Notre Dame is very good offensively because of the quarterback position. I think they do just enough to get it done. They're pretty talented at the tailback position. So I think Notre Dame in a defensive struggle over Virginia Tech.
I'm going to go opposite here, and for the sheer fact that it's an away game for Notre Dame, that place is going to be rocking. You thought the North Carolina game, the first game of the season, was rocking.
Blacksburg is fucking nuts, man.
It is going to be rocking, probably times 10.
Oh yeah.
And this is a night game. Virginia Tech versus
let them boys and girls get amped up, juiced up during the day.
Ooh. Oh yeah.
7:30 rolls around, it's gonna be fucking popping.
I'm going Vodtech here for the sheer home field advantage.
I don't hate that pick. I also kind of want Notre Dame to keep winning.
For Cincinnati's.
I do, man.
I get it. Yeah, sure.
I do, but I hate picking with my heart. I truly think that Notre Dame defense is going to be the difference, though. That's what it is for me. I'm with you, though. That home field advantage is real. in Blacksburg.
Yeah, I think it's it's going to be it's a 7:30 kickoff, October. It's already dark at 7:30. That Sandman song comes in. It's lights out, Notre Dame. Lights out. Bye bye.
Yep.
All right. Sure. Moving on. Alabama, Texas A&M shouldn't be a contest here. I got Alabama on this one. This is one where A&M is going to have a 3-game losing streak and could possibly, potentially, in my eyes, 3-game losing streak with Jimbo Fisher there.
Going to be some questions.
There's going to be some questions, and that seat might get a little bit hotter.
Oh, it's going to start to warm up a little.
Yep.
I understand it's Alabama, but losing to Mississippi State last week is really what is the catalyst for it. They should not have lost to Mississippi State. They should be, looking at going into Bama and it potentially being 2 out of 3 and not a big deal, right? Because they lost to a couple of talented teams. But losing to Mississippi State really sets back that whole momentum that A&M had from the start of the season, being ranked so high. But yeah, I think that seat's going to get a little bit warm there at A&M for Jimbo Fisher.
Definitely.
I think Bama rolls too, and that might be another thing that really doesn't sit well with the AD and the boosters.
Yeah. Yep. Last game for the ranked opponents of the night, New Mexico at San Diego State. Shouldn't be a contest here. New Mexico, I think, is 2-2 or 2-3, and San Diego State's undefeated right now. The Aztecs, they're going to get the job done at home against the Lobos.
Yeah, there's a pretty big gap in talent here too. So,
yep, definitely. All righty. Well, our picks for the week are in. We have some good ones. We agreed on some, and we disagreed on a few others. But overall,
we were in lockstep on quite a few.
Yeah,
a couple that surprised me too. I was a bit surprised by your Syracuse pick. Hey. I thought I was going to surprise you a little bit, but great minds think alike, right?
That's right, buddy. That's right. That's why we're here. That's why we have our picks, and we're just here to have fun and just keep on moving on, baby.
Keep on keeping on. Life's a garden, dig it.
That's right. All right. With that being said, we'll move on to the one segment that truly deserves our full and undivided attention. Our segment where we honor the fallen. And this segment is brought to you by Folds of Honor, www.foldsofhonor.org, military organization that gives out scholarships to wounded and deceased veterans' families for immediate use, high school use, and future use for college. That's Folds of Honor, www.foldsofhonor.org, and this is our Salute to Service segment.
This week's Salute to Service goes out to Air Force Senior Airman Jason Kai-Fan. He passed away about a year ago, but the reason this stuck out to me is it's something we've talked about in the past. He was 26 years old. When you talk about military, we're asking kids straight out of high school to serve their country, and many step up to the plate, and unfortunately sometimes it results in these soldiers and sailors and airmen being taken way too soon. 26 is way too young. But to honor the fallen here, Senior Airman Fan passed away in a single vehicle accident while conducting routine patrol outside the perimeter of Ali Al Salam Air Base in Kuwait. 2 other airmen were injured in the incident, but they recovered just fine. Fan was part of the 66th Security Forces Squadron at Hanscom Air Force Base deployed over to Kuwait. The accident was under investigation. The result is still pending as far as I could find. So, but these patrols, they're trying to rid the area of things like IEDs, things like hazardous, obstacles, those sorts of things. In Kuwait, it's not too much of a war zone, so you hope these sorts of things don't happen. But as mentioned before, we're in high tension situations. These sorts of things happen, and it's really unfortunate, especially when we lose somebody so young at the age of 26. So, in honor of Senior Airman Fan, this episode goes to you. We have to watch.
It's the best part of the segment right there, is just honoring our fallen. Honoring our fallen every week. Every week. So, well, again, we say it every week. It's the
hardest transition.
It's the hardest transition, but we got to do it. So, with that being said, we'll move right along to our Heisman stock report. Heisman stock report here, brought to you by Tailgate Trash Talk. And we might have some new faces in the lineup this week, and we might have a new number one. We may not. Who knows? But here we are at number 5 for the Tailgate Trash Talk Heisman stock report. Man, this is a big drop off for you there, bud. You had him at number 1 last week.
Yes, sir.
And you dropped him all the way to number 5.
And to be honest with you, I had a little bit of trouble putting him at 5. As bad as he
were you going to drop him out completely?
I almost did.
Woo.
I convinced myself to treat this as where I think they're going to finish the season, right? What we talked about. This is not a week to week knee jerk. This is our stock, right? If I'm buying stock in Matt Corral, I think there's still potential for it to go up at the end of the season. So I had to convince myself not to drop him out of the top 5, because he looked awful against Bama, and his coach didn't do him any favors, but he did not look the part against Bama. Yeah. I was close to putting him on the outside looking in, with the potential that I knew he was going to make it back into the top 5. And that's where I had to start convincing myself, like, hey, I've got to treat this as if I'm buying stock in this player. So I put him at 5. I just think that he's going to recover, but that game was really, really bad.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I did not see you dropping him like that, but I am in total agreement with you on it. So I'm not shocked by any means as far as what you said there. I was just kind of shocked that he dropped all the way from number 1 to number 5 after one game. But that's what happens when you play like that against a team like that. You know, that was your big opportunity, and you did not step up to the plate.
Right.
So at my number 5, a new face for us here.
Yes, sir.
My boy 2 a.m. Adrian Martinez. Don't sleep on us, he says. And boy, howdy, do not sleep on Adrian Martinez right now. I know if you're watching, if you're listening right now, you're wondering who or what? What am I thinking? And hear me out here, okay? Adrian Martinez, he had a lot of Heisman talk going into his sophomore season. A lot of Heisman talk. The way he played his freshman year, had a down sophomore season, okay? Last year, it was kind of 50-50, maybe 40, 45, 55 or so. This season, though, aside from the first game, really, he has kept Nebraska in the ball games, and he is the reason why they have turned that corner. He is leading by example. He has not turned the ball over. Now, I know he's behind C.J. Stroud from Ohio State, you know, in some areas, but he's a dual threat quarterback. He can get it done through the air and on the ground. We saw it last week against Northwestern. I think he had 2 or 3 rushing touchdowns and a couple passing touchdowns as well. So Adrian Martinez, he's been kind of climbing up there, in my opinion, very slowly, but he's been creeping up there throughout the season, and he's the reason why Nebraska has been in some of those close ball games. Now, I know the record and everything like that doesn't show what it should for a Heisman candidate, but because of Adrian, they've been in that Oklahoma game where they should have won. They've been in the Michigan State game where they should have won. And last week, they put it all out on the table and rolled Northwestern. So we'll see if he can keep it up against a very good Michigan team this weekend in Lincoln. That's my number 5.
Not to mention he's got one of the best nicknames in like all of football.
I love it.
What
2 a.m.
nickname, man.
Yeah. Just came out with a shirt too today. Yeah. It said, "Don't sleep on us." Pretty sweet awesome shirt. Yeah.
That's cool.
Pretty sweet. All right. Moving on. Number 4, your boy, Grayson McCall with the Shanties.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah.
Up a spot.
I'm all in, man. I had him at 5 last week. He played great again last week. I'm moving him up. I think he's going to end up in New York City. I don't think he's ever going to get to number 1. I just think there's guys at big programs that are going to get the hype and continue to outplay their stock there. But I think Grayson McCall is going to end up in New York City as a finalist. And I love the way he commands that offense, dual threat. Dude can run the ball, and that sometimes they even run a triple option style. Very diverse offense, and he commands it very well. So for that reason, I'm buying all the stock I can get. If you're selling Grayson McCall stock, I'm buying, baby.
I like it. I liked your pick last week. I liked how he moved up a spot, especially going 100% completion percent last week and a couple tutties. Love it.
And he didn't throw 3 or 4 passes. He had double-digit pass attempts and completed every single one of them.
Yeah, I think it was 13 for 13, something like that. So
Baker's dozen.
Baker's dozen, baby. My number 4.
I loved this pick.
He's starting to get some attention here.
Yes, he is.
And for good reason. He stayed back an extra season, and it's paying off for him. If he would have went to the NFL draft last year, I don't know if he even gets drafted. But coming back for another year and putting up the numbers that he's putting up right now and playing the way he is, he's definitely getting some recognition and turning some eyes right now. And just getting that extra year of playing under your belt, under your shoulders, and everything that goes along with it is going to pay dividends for him. And so I think if he keeps it up here, he's going to be there in New York as well.
Yeah, this guy's on my radar, man. Before the season, I worried about him being a little bit like a guy that played at Pitt and then went in the NFL and kind of flamed out. Also, last name starting with a P, Mr. 5 picks. But he's definitely, in my eyes, he's definitely made good on that preseason kind of dark horse that some people were calling him. And he's on my radar. He's probably, maybe 7 or 8 right now for me, but he's in that group of a handful of guys, like Kenneth Walker and Travion Henderson for me.
Yeah.
I think he's in that group of guys that are right there waiting for somebody to stumble, to pounce and get into that contention for potentially sitting in the auditorium in New York City, man.
Like it. All right, moving on to number 3. No change for you for this week.
No change.
Mr. Sean Clifford. And
no change.
He's got another big stage to kind of cement himself into really the Heisman talk here, and possibly even bump up a spot or two going up against Iowa this weekend.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, give me Penn State beating Iowa, and give me this week being the week that Sean Clifford's no longer just on my radar, but he's on the national radar for Heisman contention. I think this guy can do it all at the quarterback position. I like his leadership as well. I think his mentality fits perfectly. You mentioned James Franklin and the energy he brings to the table. I think this guy almost embodies that at the quarterback position. So, yeah, give me all the stock I can get in Sean Clifford as well. I'm keeping him right here in the top 3 for me.
All right. My guy, he was at the top of my list last week. He did not drop as much as you dropped him, but he did drop to number 3 for me, Mr. Matt Corral. And you just didn't step up to the stage. It was a big time, big game, big stage to where you could have cemented yourself as the lone wolf atop of that cliff right there. And instead, you kind of just laid an egg, really. And it'll be interesting to see how he bounces back this week. It really will, to see if he stays in our Heisman stock report or if he drops out completely. I think he'll have a bounce back game, but I did go against him here, so can't go wrong with the baby blue though. The powder blue. I mean, you mentioned it last week. I like it, but
that's the perfect selection. Like I had to tip my cap last week, and every week I see it, I'm like, fuck, man, that jersey is so sharp.
They are
so sharp. The shoulder board stripes too. It's such
yeah.
a nice little break above the uniform. It's fucking awesome,
and
man.
It's kind of old school too to me.
Yeah, that's the Heisman Trophy uniform, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the best uniform in college sports.
Yep. So we'll see how he bounces back this week, and we'll see if he's in our Heisman stock report for next week. But moving on to number 2, we're both in agreement here. Bryce Young, really, I think he was our number 2 last week as well.
I think so.
So no change here. Keeps doing what he's doing, and for you and me, really, unless he has like an ungodly game, and it might be that SEC game, against Georgia. If we're all predicting them to get there and to match up there, if he goes off on Georgia here in that game, and he could propel himself over Ritter for us if Ritter doesn't mess up as well. So if he keeps doing what he's doing, the calm, the patient, he's very patient. He does not go for the deep ball all the time. He's a game manager to me, but he doesn't do it in a boring way. You know what I mean?
Right.
He's a good quarterback, real good quarterback for me. I know you're high on him as well. So
yeah, for sure. It's his maturity as a young guy.
For someone that hasn't played a lot of college football. Yeah.
He's just so poised. He doesn't let the game, get too big for him. And I think that's going to come in handy against Georgia. And if he exhibits the same thing against Georgia and they go and they roll Georgia, or, he plays super well in a game that they, even if they squeak it out, but he plays really well, that's going to go a long way.
Yeah.
What I worry about with him in terms of the voters is, one, we've seen it in the past where like underclassmen, it's not as much anymore, but underclassmen, they don't like to vote for because they're, he's got another chance. The other thing I worry about too is that, Alabama had Mac Jones and Devontae Smith in New York last year. And I think that, with Hurts and Jones and, all the wide receivers they're putting in the NFL, Waddle and, obviously Smith and Ruggs and whatnot. I think there's some risk of voter fatigue for Alabama, where they start to say, well, that Bama offense is just really, really good. And that's why I haven't really had him at number 1, because that's what I worry about with him, with the voters, and them just kind of saying, well, Bama's got so many damn athletes that, it's really hard to put him above, you know, other guys that are playing with less talent on the offensive side of the ball. But this dude is very impressive for how young he is.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. And that leaves us with our number one Heisman stock report. Surprise, surprise, Mr. Desmond Ridder.
Yes, sir. Listen, I said it last week. If he beats Notre Dame, I'm putting him in number one.
Yep.
And not only did he beat Notre Dame, but he had, as we talked about earlier, he had that Heisman drive.
Yes.
Notre Dame had just closed the gap. And I believe I said 17-10 earlier, but it was 17-13, right? Notre Dame had just kicked a field goal, and they had closed it to where if they score, they could win, right, with a touchdown. Ridder goes down, drives his team right down, hits that nasty fireball down the middle of the field, and then ends up running in for the ceiling touchdown. For me, that's really the moment where I think the voters can really glom onto. As long as he continues to put up big numbers against these inferior opponents they're going to face over the next 5 or 6 weeks, he's going to have to do that even against the UCFs of the world. He's got to put up big numbers to continue to prove to the voters that he belongs there. But for me, right now, Desmond Ridder is the best fucking player in football.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head, that Heisman drive last week, and we talked about, Matt Corral, Bryce Young, Desmond Ridder, stepping up to the stage when it is a big game, and Desmond Ridder did that last week. And if he continues to do that, then I don't see how he's not the Heisman at the end of the season. But Heisman drive last week against Notre Dame sealed the victory for him, and that is why he is our Heisman stock report number one guy right now, which leads us into a great transition here,
yes,
Gary.
Sir.
Desmond Ridder, the number one Heisman stock for us, and with what he said last week, the Tailgate Trash Talk last week, and if you don't remember, Cincinnati quarterback Desmond Ridder was warned by his OC about how loud Notre Dame would be this weekend. His response, I told him it shouldn't be too loud for too long. He was right. So that prompted you to create a whole new segment that we're going forward with for the rest of the season. And without further ado, Gary, I will allow you to introduce this new segment.
Yes, sir. So Desmond Ridder inspired me to create what I like to call the Trash Talk Hall of Fame, brought to you by the Tailgate Trash Talk folks. Desmond Ridder did something we talked about last week that you really shouldn't do. He poked the beast heading into South Bend. He told a fucking reporter the conversation he had with his coach. And we talked about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Say that to your coach. Don't say it to the reporter. Don't give him bulletin board
That's
material.
Bulletin board material right there.
However, Desmond Ridder slapped it on the table and said, fuck that. I'm telling him exactly what I said. And then I'm going to go into South Bend, and I'm going to lead a game-winning drive down the field. I'm going to throw a dime, and then I'm running in for the fucking game-sealing touchdown. So for that, Desmond Ridder is the inaugural recipient of the honor of being enshrined in the Trash Talk Hall of Fame. We might even name the building after him, Ridder Hall, or something along those lines. That is some alpha dog A-level shit. Alpha dog.
I like it. I like
Bringing the heat. Putting his ham hock on the table and telling fucking Brian Kelly, bring it, buddy. Bring it.
Yep. Bring it. Bring it. Great. It was a great segue into a great new segment, and I appreciate you coming up with that this week. And that should just go into our next segment, which is our top plays.
Yeah,
our top plays from last week. And man, they were good. They were good. We had some good ones.
it to the end zone for a touchdown. To Tyler Boyd.
Unreal.
Christian from 48. It's blocked. Kentucky makes a play on special teams. Now they're ripping off a return. 78 yards. Touchdown. Pressure comes. Lofts it for Jackson.
That's still
Going up with the one tail. Incomplete on the field, but able to that right mid on the ball. Great adjustment.
Play snap. McKee over the top, and it will be incomplete. Here comes a flag. Humphreys had a chance to catch it anyway. It went through his hands. And the downside of the pass interference is you give Stanford another play.
They could let him play, but not that one.
All right. Stanford goes to the other side. This one is caught for a touchdown. Elijah Higgins on the final play. Stanford is a point away from tying it up. Into overtime. Stanford with the point after try, still down by one. And that kick is up and good. We will have overtime here. Play clock down. They get the ball snapped. McKee throws a slant. Humphreys cuts it inside. Humphreys, touchdown! What an effort from John Humphreys there to power through the defense.
Here it is, Gary. Here it is.
Buddy. Put the women and children to bed. Put out the fires. Call off the dogs. The hunt is
Bama rushes three. Corral, plenty of time. Throws a back shoulder. Oh, did he catch that ball?
That catch was amazing.
unreal.
Did.
Unreal. Unreal. What a catch.
Hell of a catch. Hell of a catch. So those were the Tailgate Trash Talk's top plays from last week. Again, if you guys have any top plays that you'd like to see on there that you think are deserving, send them our way. We'll get them in there. So, all righty. We got one more segment left before the end of the show here. And it's something we came up with last week. It's called Tailgating 101. And last week, we talked about our key essentials, our top 4 key essentials for tailgating.
I introduced you to spike ball.
You did, and never heard of that dang sport or that game whatsoever. And I truthfully do not see this as a tailgate game, and I'll leave it at that for right now. That's a discussion for another day. But going off of spike ball here, I was watching ESPN on Sunday morning, and I was watching one show, and then all of a sudden, after that show ended, it went to spike ball. I was like, what in the hell? I'm like, are you serious right now?
This is a real thing?
Yeah. And so after watching about 20 minutes of it, that is not a tailgate game. There is no way that is a tailgate game. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to YouTube, Google, search for spike ball, and you will understand why that is not a tailgate game.
It's a little intense.
It does. And if you are playing that tailgating,
you
are asking to get hurt. That is God's honest truth right there. So with that being said, this week I asked Gary to give me his number one thing that he likes to eat at tailgates. His answer might shock some of you, might cause for some debate, and might just be downright blasphemy.
Maybe.
So, Gary, tailgating 101 here. What is the food that you like to tailgate with, or that you like to have at a tailgate?
Yeah, listen, this is for me, it's a staple, right, for tailgating. And I'm gonna put it out there, right? Yeah. This is the staple for tailgating. You have to have hot dogs at a tailgate.
Sure.
You have to, right?
And before you go any further, I'm just going to go ahead and say this. You need to put this on our Facebook page as a poll for this next week, for this week coming weekend. So
for sure, so hot dogs are a staple, and you can have burgers, you can have brats, you can have steaks, you can have chicken. I've seen chicken at tailgates, which is great. The Bills have pizza guy who cooks pizzas at tailgates.
Ooh.
He's got this like makeshift oven that he makes pizzas and shit.
Okay.
Guy at Barstool that does all the reviews of pizza did a review of the pizza. So it's like it's their thing up in Buffalo, right? Other than diving through fucking folding tables.
Some of them aren't folding. Some
hot
of them
dogs, right? They cook easy. They're filling, right? You eat them on a bun. They go good with beer, all that. But what many people may disagree with me on about hot dogs is how I eat them, right? I've had conversations with people where it's just mustard, right? If you put anything other than mustard on a hot dog, it's not a hot dog anymore. It's a fucking like casserole or something, whatever they want to call it. Sauerkraut, relish, two different kinds of relish. There's dill relish, sweet relish. Like, people are really passionate about the way they eat hot dogs. Chicago style hot dogs, those are like a fucking sandwich. Mm-hmm. They're like a buffet. So for me, for a hot dog, it's ketchup and mustard. And if you don't eat it that way, I can't fuck with it. That little bit of sweetness that the ketchup gives, that little bit of sourness of the mustard, combined with the salty meatiness of the hot dog on a bun, it's beautiful. Ketchup, mustard, hot dog on a bun. I don't care what style bun you use, right? A lot of people say New England are better because you can set it down and it stands up because it's cut from the top. I don't give a shit. Give me a bun. I'll eat it on a slice of fucking bread. But I got to have ketchup and mustard on a hot dog.
All right. Good deal.
That's a good poll, though. I like that suggestion. I think I'm going to put it on the page.
You need to.
We're going to find out how
you're definitely going to get some traction with that, because there are so many different variances out there and so many different variables, as you just brought up, on how to eat a hot dog. And it all depends on where you're from, what part of the country you live in, and everything else, to how you're going to prepare your hot dog. So it's going to be an interesting thread on our Facebook page. So I'm definitely interested to see what the outcome is and what the overall majority say about this. So it's a good one. Once you said it the other day, I was like, all right, I'm down. Let's do it. So with that, we did our first tailgate giveaway last week, and we asked you, the viewers, the listeners, to send us your videos of you guys tailgating or whatever at the games this past weekend. And few of you guys did. So we appreciate that. And a few of you, and I'm going to have to call you out by name here, Mr. Ryan Trotnick. You were blowing it up last week, and I see you haven't commented yet today on it. But you were blowing it up last week, how you were going to be tailgating at your son's football game, flag football. And we were all for it. We were pumped to see this tailgate video. And as of right now, I have not gotten video footage of this tailgate from Mr. Ryan Trotnick. So
shame.
Yes, for shame, sir. So regardless, we did get some video footage from others across the country. We got two different games, and then got a video from some fans from Clemson who were doing the rides and everything, the floats and everything like that. So without further ado, here are some video footage of the tailgate weekend. I'm pumped. Dude, I'm pumped already. I saved the best for last right there. The GBR, the Thunderstruck under the red lights at night. That's what Michigan is going to be having this weekend. So, with that being said,
so Thunderstruck always brings me back whenever I hear that song.
Oh yeah.
Always brings me back to high school wrestling.
Oh.
So that was our entrance music. So we would, for wrestling, for dual meets, we would come out, each team would warm up, and obviously the away team would warm up with, no music because fuck them.
Yeah.
And we would come out, lights off in the gym. We'd run out, get onto the mat, and as soon as we got on the mat, the lights would come on, and that music was playing, and we'd sit in the locker room while it was the interlude there at the beginning, and jamming on the and it was fucking awesome. And we'd get out there, and you couldn't help but be fucking jacked up. That's such a good song.
Oh yeah,
get everybody pumped.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say it brought you back to Varsity Blues, because that's what it brought back to me.
Too. Like I heard it in that, and I was like, man, that's such a good song for sports. It was such a perfect song for wrestling. We'd come out, we'd run circles around the mat while it's fucking thunder.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, with that being said, we appreciate the viewers who sent us videos of you guys tailgating at the games, at the pre-parties, whatnot, for this past weekend. And I think if you're all right with it, Gary, I think everyone that sent us a video this week goes ahead and gets some free merch from us.
Hell yeah!
All right,
yeah.
So
that's a good start.
Yeah, so we'll post the winners on our Facebook account tomorrow, and go from there, and do it again this weekend. Send us your videos from this weekend. And big announcement: if you are at the UCF football game this weekend, I will be down there tailgating from 12 o'clock on, supporting the UCF Knights. So if you see me around, wave me down. We'll get a picture. We'll get some videos of guys tailgating. We'll get you on air for next week's show, and possibly get you some free merch as well. So
I can't wait to see that, man.
Yeah, should be fun. Should be a good time down there in good old Orlando, Florida. The UCF Knights take on Eastern Carolina, and the next week's the big game, UCF and Cincinnati. So. Well, sir, another great episode in. Episode number 3 is in the books. We had a good slate of games for this weekend. Good previews, good matchups, and I can't wait for another weekend of college football.
Hell yeah. It's going to be a good one. There's always a good matchup. It never fails with college football. There's so many slates, there's so many games that there's always something that's gonna grab the attention, and we're gonna have plenty to talk about next week.
For sure. With that being said, Mr. Gary Freeze, thank you again, sir.
Thank you.
On the big stove, and thanks again for tuning in and listening to us. And we shall see you next week. And send us your videos and we will see you on the flip side. Thanks again for tuning in, folks.